As we get started in this class, the first thing we're going to want to address is what is sociology? Some of you signed up for this class having some familiarity, others of you perhaps not so much. So, simply put, sociology is the scientific study of social behavior and human groups. And I like to start off with this slide, and I want you to take a look at it and think about what this means for you. A fish knows nothing of the water. We see the fish there in the fish bowl, and we need to ask ourselves, what does that mean? A fish knows nothing of the water. Now, oftentimes when I ask this in groups, I get one of a couple of responses. One thing that students will say is that fish knows nothing of the water because the fish cannot know air, never experienced air. Well, certainly that's true. That's part of the equation, and it's an important part. If we have only experienced what we've experienced in our lives, then perhaps we really don't have a grasp on the other, right? So that might mean that we don't know what other cultures are like. We don't know what other parts of the world are like in terms of their social experience and their interpretation of the world. So that is a huge piece of sociology, is trying to understand through other people's lenses sometimes, things that we cannot experience. The other answer that I'll often get is the fish knows nothing of the water because when you exist in a space, it just is. Quick example of this: most of us do not think about our breathing, right? Think about that. If I said, how many times have you breathed in and out since this video began? You probably wouldn't know. When do we notice our breathing? When we can't breathe or when we're having difficulty breathing. But as long as we can, we often don't think about what that means to breathe. We don't break it down, we don't analyze it. And so that's certainly another part of it, is even in the space in which we're located, where our world looks normal, whatever that means for you, whatever is seems like the natural state of things if that's what we've experienced. And so oftentimes we're not very good at breaking that down and understanding what we're actually a part of because it just is to us. So in sociology, we're going to be doing both things. We're going to be examining our own experience in a more analytical, scientific way to understand what our experience is about, but we're also going to take a look at what we don't know, and take our blinders off a little bit in terms of understanding that our space in the world is limited and that we really have to kind of go the extra step to understand parts of the world that are not part of our everyday experience. So, one of the things that we say in sociology is that what we're going to be looking at, and this builds on that last slide, of course, we're going to be trying to seeing the strange in the familiar and the familiar in the strange. So, again, seeing the strange in the familiar, the things that just seem like every day to us, we're going to see what kind of comprises that space, and then the familiar in the strange. What do we actually have in common with things that don't look so familiar to us at face value? So one of the key authors that you're going to learn about, that this is kind of an overarching concept in sociology, is that of the sociological imagination. And the idea of the sociological imagination, it is complex in that the author, C. Wright Mills, wrote the book, The Sociological Imagination. And so it is not only a book, but it is also a concept in the discipline of sociology, which tells you that it's rich in meaning. If there's a whole book by this title, and because it's rich in meaning, sometimes it's hard to define it down to a nice, concise, simple version of what this means. But I pull a couple of things away, and you're going to watch another video on the sociological imagination. But C. Wright Mills said sociology is hands-on. Sociology is real world. Sociology is about engaging in social change. So, in other words, if we come to understand our world better, by living in it, by experiencing it, and by analyzing it, we are, as sociologists, engaged in also changing it to make it better. And so we'll experience that a little bit more as we, like I said, you'll see another video on this, and you'll explore it a little bit on your own. But it's kind of an overarching premise in the discipline of sociology and a useful definition to kind of have under your belt as we move forward.